And good morning, everybody. Welcome to FSU Coach Live. My name's Tim Baghurst, and I'm joined this morning by Travis Wilson. He's the assistant softball coach for FSU women's softball. Travis, thanks so much for joining me. If you wouldn't mind, just give everybody a little bit of an introduction, talking about your history and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, good morning, Tim. Thanks for having me. You might notice an accent as we go along here. Originally from New Zealand, born and raised. Lived in New Zealand up until I was 18 years of age. Played fast pitch softball, men's fast pitch softball, played rugby and soccer and pretty much every sport under the sun. But softball was my love. And I always dreamed of having the opportunity to maybe come and play some baseball in America. And thankfully that opportunity presented itself. And I came over and played 8 minor league seasons, 7 with the Braves, 1 with the Cincinnati Reds. Ended up meeting my now wife. I've stayed here ever since and done a number of things. But for the last 9 years, I've been the assistant coach at Florida State softball. And probably the best decision I ever made, coming to Tallahassee and working with Lonnie. This has been a fantastic career choice for me. Wonderful place to live. My family loves it here, and I feel very fortunate to be able to coach and get to do what I love every single day.
I'm curious, coming from New Zealand, it's quite an unusual story, as you kind of alluded to, going from fast pitch softball to baseball. Can you explain how that worked? I mean, how did you even get found or recruited, drafted from softball into baseball? That's interesting.
Yes, well, in 1996, that was the men's world championships in Midland, Michigan. And I was a 18-year-old on the men's team. The game of softball came pretty easily to me at a younger age. And when I was there playing, I believe a scout with the Atlanta Braves saw me. And when I went back to New Zealand, they sent out their local guy who was based in Australia. He worked me out for a couple of weeks, and I signed a contract to go play baseball for the first time ever. I'd grown up playing softball. I'd spent my whole time on a softball field. And, here I was, one of the better softball players in the world at my age. And when I came over here, and I'm one of the worst baseball players of my age at the time. So big learning experience for me. I had to adjust from being on the other side of the world all by myself, learning a new sport, just learning to compete and figure things out and grow up pretty quickly. So the game was very difficult for me at first, and I slowly figured it out a little bit, and I had not a bad little career in the minor leagues with it.
Talk a little bit about moving from New Zealand to the U.S. as basically a young adult, and I know when coaches recruit athletes internationally, there can be a lot of challenges, culture shock, language barriers, just even idioms that are used in vernacular that we use on a daily basis that somebody from another country just doesn't understand. What were some of the challenges you experienced when you moved from New Zealand to the U.S.?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, I think if you're going to travel halfway around the world, you really got to love what you're trying to do. That wasn't a problem with me. I knew I wanted to play baseball. I knew I wanted to take a shot at, maybe one day playing in the major leagues. So that wasn't too difficult for me because it was my goal. I dreamt it. I've always wanted this opportunity. But then when you get here, it is very cutthroat sort of industry, the minor leagues, or I guess baseball in general, really at professional level. The team environment that I knew so much growing up in New Zealand, playing for your country, playing for your players to the left and your right of you, all of that type of thing sort of goes out the window in professional sports. It's a lot more cutthroat, every man for himself, trying to, look after number one, really. So that was a big change for me. And also, playing with players from all over the world, a number of players that spoke Spanish, and here's me, softball player with a funny accent. So there were a lot of things that I had to figure out, but you just had to grow up quickly. You had to, keep asking yourself, why am I doing this? And if your why is greater than your situations, which we talk about all the time with our players here, like, why are you playing? Why do you want to do this? Why are you getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning working out? Why are you doing all this? Because, you love the game. So for me, I mean, I just love to play. I love to be on the field. So some of the hardships were a little bit easier for me to deal with.
Talk a little bit then about how you transitioned from going as a baseball player into being a softball coach. How did that happen?
I was once my career finished, I floated around doing some bits and pieces, and My wife and I, we were settling in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I was working in a hitting facility, teaching some baseball lessons, and there's always be some softball girls that would come in, and I'd throw them batting practice because not many men in this country can throw underhand softball because they didn't grow up playing the game. So I'd throw some BP. And one day I was in the facility, and the owner came out and said, "Oh, the Florida State coach called me asking about you, softball." I'm like, "Really?" So after my lessons, I jumped online, I figured out her email, sent her an email, and said, "Here's my information." And then Lonnie gave me a call a few days later, and she came out and visited me after a long summer of recruiting for her. We hit it off pretty well. I think we had a lot of things in common about how we taught the game, how we want to play the game, and it just fit. It just felt right for me, especially when I came and brought the family down to Tallahassee for a weekend. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, coaching 18 to 22-year-old females for the first time. One thing I did know, I always backed my ability to coach the game of softball. Fortunately, been in a number of situations in different parts of the world where I got to learn the game from some special people. So I always backed my ability to coach the game. I then had to learn the recruiting side of it, the compliance side, the getting out and finding talent and all that type of thing. So to me, it was a lot like my shot in the minor leagues. It's like, whoa, here I am, figure it out. And then I get here, I take this job, and I'm like, I've been here before. I can figure this out. And, got off, hit the ground running. And, again, it's something I always wanted to do. I wanted to follow my passion, and my passion is softball. And now someone pays me to do it, and I get to take care of my family doing something that I love to do every single day. So very, very fortunate.
Talk a little bit about your roles and responsibilities as an assistant coach. You've been there, I think you said 9 years, which is quite a long time for somebody to stick with one program as an assistant. What do you do on a daily basis outside of the current coronavirus, time period? What does your day job look like?
I know when I first took the job, I'm like, yes, I'm going to get to coach softball 8-9 hours a day. But really, it's not all softball. There's so much. Spend a lot of time in the office. You're making connections with travel ball coaches, high school coaches. You're keeping up with boosters. You're helping Lonnie with maybe some fundraising stuff. It's not just the softball side of it, which I had to learn pretty much. But get in here early in the morning. You're setting up practice plans. You are having individual hitting sessions and fielding sessions with your players. Then you're getting ready for practice. You're doing community service stuff with them. You're going to events with them. You're connecting with them off the field. So, just get to learn your players a little bit more. I think that's the big thing. You got to let them know that you don't just want them to be good softball players. You want them to be good human beings. You want them to grow, learn. I'm in charge of academics. I keep up with how they're all doing with that as well. Because at the end of the day, you really want them to graduate. You want them to go on and be, successful people after college. So, we have noticed that the more time you invest in them off the field and being good people, that just translates into the way they play softball for you and how well they represent your university and your team. So there's not too much downtime. Summer is not your typical thing for maybe a teacher. We're out. We recruit all summer. We're at tournaments all across the country. We're trying to find the best players around to come and be Florida State Seminoles, and it's full on. You take a little bit of a hit, I would say, on the family side of things, if you're fully invested in trying to hold a top 5 program to win national championships. It comes with a lot of sacrifices for you and your family. But like I said earlier, I get to do my passion every day. I love it. It's not too hard to make some of the decisions involved with this job, because you want to be the best and you want to give these young ladies the best experience possible when they get here.
Coaching burnout and stress is something that is continually talked about in the profession. And you mentioned as well, having to take time away from family. So have you found any kind of guidelines for yourself or suggestions that allow you to at least try to balance out and make sure that you're whole as a person and as a coach, to ensure that your family get Travis Wilson at his best and your athletes get Travis Wilson at his best?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one of the best lines is just be where your feet are.
Mm.
I know that's so hard to do sometimes that, I'll be sitting at home with the kids at night and I'll be worrying about tomorrow's game, or, I've got to talk to this recruit, or I've got to figure this part out. So then I'm not really with my family and I'm not really with my job. I'm like in between. It's just know that, when I'm with my family, kind of put the phone down, hang out, really try to connect. It's so much easier said than done. Because you're always thinking, how can I get better? How can I get the program better? How can I get this player better? But if you're thinking of that 24/7, that can really grind on you. And I think that's where what you're mentioning can pop up. Or maybe you're not just in coaching for the right reason. Like I feel if you're in it for the right reason, for the development of for your players and the good of the game, then I feel the burnout's probably not as big of a deal. But if it's just a job and you're just doing it for the paycheck or going through the motions, then I can see how people burn out with it. But the big one for me is just being where your feet are, investing in your people, and knowing that you're not going to win every game. And sun comes up tomorrow. I know we take some losses pretty hard as coaches and as a program, but it's okay. Tomorrow's another day. The wins and losses don't define you. Just keep going, keep plugging away, and keep trying to get better.
Well, if you're just joining us, Travis Wilson is speaking about his experiences as an assistant softball coach at FSU. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll get them to him. We've talked a little bit about the burnout and the stress. What are some of the challenges that you experience outside of that as an assistant coach? Time management obviously is huge, but for example, do you have challenges with specific players where they're harder to coach than others? Or I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, no, I think if you get in coaching for any amount of time, you realize pretty quickly that you can't reach everybody the same way. You can't teach them all the same way. They don't all learn the same way. So it really sort of challenges your ability as a coach to find different ways to connect with your players. Technology is big for them now. The younger ones are coming through. They know so much more about technology. They're more savvy on the computer and the iPhones. And, we get such good video now. You can coach through just sending them clips and sending them Twitter feeds and stuff. Hey, check this out. Look at this. I mean, I think the coaching doesn't just stop when practice finishes. Like, you're coaching them all the time. There's always ways to reach them about things that can help them. It just doesn't stop. It's full on, and you're always thinking, how can I get this girl to hit a rise ball? How can I get this girl to backhand a ball? Like, that doesn't go away. You're always trying to coach them. But what it challenges you to do is find ways to reach them and find different ways to word things that sits differently with different players. So for me, you learn they're not all the same. They don't all think the same, and you've got to really, really try and find different ways to reach them.
You're very motivated. You're very passionate about what you do. You're very driven to be successful. And I'm guessing that not every athlete that comes through your program has that same mindset, right? There's other distractions maybe that come in, or other priorities that take precedent. And so how do you motivate the athlete that just doesn't want it as much as you want it for them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one. I mean, a lot of time, like, it's our job, it's what we do. Like, my passion is to coach softball. I want to win ACC championships, national championships. But for some young ladies that come into your program, their goal is to get a degree, and as it should be, and be successful after softball. And softball's the avenue in which they're using to, maybe get a scholarship or enjoy their college time. So yes, a lot of times we get players that you think, oh, if she only wanted this as much as the rest of the coaching staff and wants to get after it and commit as much. But you also realize that, it's not the be all and end all softball. It's, it's what we love to do. But for them, it's, it's a game. And a lot of times we have to treat it as that. So, hey, we get to play. We play tomorrow. We're not working tomorrow. We play. And I think if you know that it should be enjoyable, working out should be enjoyable, practice should be enjoyable, you try and make it fun. Irregardless of where they are and how much they love the game, and whether they go to bed at night dreaming of hitting a home run at the World Series or not, just make it as enjoyable as you can for them. And, like everything, if you're having fun, you're going to pay more attention. You're going to want to work a little bit harder and all that type of thing. So investing in the players and making their time as enjoyable as possible, we find has been very good for us.
We do have a question for you from Daryl. He says, how will FSU primarily try to follow potential recruits, the 2022s and 2023s, during the extended dead period? How do you handle recruiting?
Yes, this has been thanks for the question, Daryl. This is uncharted territories for us. Usually right now, this is the week that the World Series is going on. So we're in a dead period right now, but starting next week, we're out on the recruiting trail all the way through, the rest of June, July, and the first few days of August. And of course, right now we're in a dead period all the way through July with this situation. So, we have our list of recruits, 22s and 23s that we know. A lot have been to camp. A lot have reached out to us through emails and tag us in social media posts. So we're keeping up with them. It's very difficult now because people are trying to go, we're going to stream our travel ball games, and there's one camera sitting behind home plate and everyone looks like ants running around on the field. We're not watching that. It's so hard to do. I might jump on and just tick the box and say, oh, look, Florida State watched this game between these two teams. But really, it's so hard to recruit through that, that medium. So we're going to have to. It's emails for the young ladies. I believe. I think Daryl's got he's probably a coach of some description or got a young daughter. So it's a big time for them. They need to reach out to coaches themselves. Be really persistent. Be really aggressive in what they want. Finance is going to be huge. It's such a big point right now for college athletics. Budgets have taken huge hits. Some schools might not have the money to get out and recruit like they normally do. They may have to pick one or two tournaments rather than be out for 4 or 5 weekends in a row. So, yes, finances are huge. Scholarships with seniors now allowing to come back for one more year. We essentially now have 5 years of players. We have the 4 that we had last year plus incoming freshmen. So we've got rosters are huge. Scholarships are tough because you've got so many people out there now, and it's a difficult time. I don't have the exact answer, but just keep working hard because trust me, if the players are out there working hard and playing well, they'll find a spot.
Talk a little bit about recruiting because I think it's an art as well as a skill in trying to get the best players that fit in your program to come to your program. And as one of the top teams in the country, FSU has maybe the status to be able to recruit really good athletes automatically because FSU. At the same time, there's other programs out there who are also very credible, also very successful, and these athletes may be torn between these different programs, and you see it all the time. How do you make sure that one, you're able to get the athletes that you really want to come to your program, and two, when you try to bring those to your program, what exactly are you looking for from those athletes, and how are you able to convince them to come?
Yeah, I mean, recruiting's it's the lifeblood of your program. I really enjoy it because I love to win, right? So as a coach, right, I love to go out and win and compete. And for them to turn around and say, well, I don't really like recruiting, doesn't make sense because you've got to go out and get the best players to come. So for me, I love it. I enjoy it. I enjoy being out at the fields. I love watching these young ladies play. A lot of times they look and think we're just watching whether they get a hit, whether they strike somebody out, whether they, do good on the field. When really we're out there watching everything recruiting. We're watching how they interact with their coaches, how they interact with their parents, how they interact with their teammates, how they deal with failure. If they respect umpires, like all of these things are can be red flags if they're not done well. So yes, we want talent. We want to be able to run, throw, catch, hit, do all that good stuff. But we're also looking at the character of the players because we know that when they get here, they're going to experience failure. No question about it. There's going to be tough times. We're going to lose a few games in a row. What's going to happen? Where are you going to be? What type of player are you going to be when under the pump? When it's not going your way or the team's way all the time, how are you going to react? So I think a lot of times for us, win or lose, we want to do it with quality people. Better. We look at it. Better people make better Seminoles, right? The better human being they are, the better individual you are, the higher character you have. Then when you get here, you got to a way better chance to succeed because you're invested. It's a lot of times, yes, I agree with you. People look at us, Florida State, you get the best players in the country. And you're like, well, yeah, we get some good ones, but we're also up against the SEC.
Right.
That people look at that, especially in the South, they look at that, oh, that's the be-all and end-all of college softball. It's the SEC, it's the SEC. I'm like, you realize there's only 2 SEC teams that won a national championship, but they're going on like this is the greatest conference of all time. And I'm like, yes, I see the propaganda, I know all that, but find yourself a place where you can be successful as a recruit. Do you really want to go sit on the end of the bench at a big-time school, or do I want to go somewhere where I can compete? I think a lot of times recruits get wrapped up in the name or the brand rather than the best fit for them. And I think a lot of times now, that's why we're seeing the transfer portals and all that just blowing up with players, because they fall in love with something that's not what they should be looking for during the recruiting process. So for us, yes, we want to go out and get the best players we can, but we also want someone, like the best thing that someone can say to me at a camp or out is walk up to me and say, I want to be a Florida State Seminole. Like they want to be here as much as we want them to be here. Because when you go up recruiting against a young lady, and let's say I'm going up against an SEC team and I'm trying to convince her to come to Florida State, that doesn't usually go very well. She should be telling me why she wants to come, and I should be going, oh, that's the type of young lady I want. Because when it gets tough, when it becomes extremely difficult, she's going to fight through a lot more because this is where she wants to be, and this was her number one choice. So recruiting goes both ways. Yes, we want the best talent, but, man, we have success with ones that just bleed the garnet and gold and want to be here.
Mm-hmm. We have a few questions for you. Tessa wants to know, what's the best part of coaching for you?
Special young ladies like that one right there. I recognize that name. Got to recruit her and coach her for a few years. I used to think it was just softball, and now you realize that it's the relationships you have with your players, the relationships you have with your coaching staff, your fans, your boosters. It's the people, right? You want to be around good people. You want to be a good person yourself. You want to make good decisions, and you want these young ladies at the end of their time here, whether they were a 4-time All-American or they were a utility role player, you want them to say, I really enjoyed my time. I was treated fairly. I loved the opportunities that I was given, and I really enjoyed Florida State. So it's the people, no question.
A couple of questions about recruiting and the coronavirus. Kelly says, due to the changes with the NCAA and coronavirus, what will the timeline for solidifying the 2020-2021 roster be?
Yeah, so our 2020 is assigned. We have, just the way recruiting was a few years ago, so early. Like we had 8th graders like verbally committed, and it was, and those are the 21 class is pretty much the last class of the early commits. So a lot of the 21s are already verbally committed, and they're waiting to be signed this November. I know it's a difficult time for some 21s out there right now that, they're seniors, they're not committed somewhere. Division I coaches can't get out and see them. It's a very tough time for a number of them. But to be honest, for a lot of us, a lot of the bigger programs, our 21 class has been set for a little while now. I think it is definitely going to affect the 22s and 23s. So
do you see any challenges for athletes who maybe sign or commit to a school, and then maybe because they've signed those papers, they kind of slack off and then arrive at the university not really in shape, not really ready to go like you expect them to be?
Yep, downside of the early recruiting for sure. You verbally commit a 8th grader and she thinks she's arrived and she's done it, and maybe she doesn't work as hard, and then gets passed up by some players that maybe developed a little bit later and, starting to hit their stride as a junior going into their senior year. Yes, happens a lot. I think a lot of that is a lot of the parity in college softball right now is due to that fact that a lot of big schools recruited early. A lot of those players didn't develop. A lot of really good players developed late, and the big schools didn't have any spots for them. And now really good players are playing at mid-majors, and mid-major softball right now it's excellent. The parity's really good across the board. So with it being pushed back now and us not being able to talk to young ladies until they're juniors, is it's going to be different. We're going to have to be on top of our recruiting game even more now, because when these young ladies come into their junior year, they're going to have the good ones are going to have multiple schools on them on September the 1st when we can talk to them. So pushing recruiting back, I think, is good for everybody. It allows these young ladies to maybe just play the game as an 8th grader, enjoy the game. Don't worry about college coaches will be out there watching you, but they can't talk to you. So just go out, play, enjoy yourself, and let the chips fall when they may when your time comes.
Miliani, do you feel that the recruiting process is going to start later than September 1st for juniors?
I do not. I think September 1st we'll be able to make some calls like we have been able to, and that'll be for the 22s, I believe. This September we'll be able to chat with them. So yeah, these young ladies, I know I see them now. They're on social media. They're stressing out. They're like wondering if their opportunity is going to come. But trust me, I just sit back, relax, breathe, go out, enjoy, play the game. We still have scholarship money. We still need players on our roster. It's just a little bit different times right now, but I think it's going to play itself out. Just hang in there. I know some coaches are like totally upset that we can't go out and recruit through the end of July. I think we just have to remember that this is unprecedented times. We're in this is tough times for everyone. People are losing their lives. Just breathe, step back a little bit. And when the time comes, we can get back out there and play this game we love.
Now, you've been at FSU for 9 years, and you've worked with your head coach for that length of time as well. Talk a little bit about the relationship that you have with her. And, it can't always be easy. You can't always be on the same page. Yet at the same time, you've worked with her for a long time, which means that in general, things are going well. How do you juggle that for somebody who may be interested in becoming an assistant coach, or a head coach who then has to work with assistant coaches and has never been in that position before? What are some of the strategies or things you've learned along the way that would help them?
Yeah. Like Lonnie and I have a fantastic relationship. She's always looking out for me. I've got a lot of respect for her, and I trust her a lot. And I know we don't always see eye to eye on certain things. And thankfully that we can just hash them out and know that whatever the issue is at hand, we're trying to figure it out for the best of our program. It's not like I want to be right, you need to be right. I want to be the one that comes up with the idea. It's like, how do we come up with the best possible scenario right here for our program? And sometimes some feelings get hurt. She might tell me something. I'm like, okay, or I'll probably say something and she's probably a little upset. But we got to know that we're doing it for the good of the program, and that it's not personal. There's no ego involved. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to get it right, and know that we're not going to get it right all the time. I think honesty is a huge thing, and trust is huge. We've got to know that we've always got each other's back. We talk a lot. We talk about our players a lot. We talk about how they fit into our program and where we're going and the direction and how we're going to get better as coaches. I'm very fortunate that we're in a fantastic learning environment here. We're always trying to get better. There's always a better way to do it. There's a new way to play the game. The game's evolving. We know all this. We're out trying to find, a better way to do what we do every single day. And yes, we spend a lot of time together. She's very passionate about the game, Lonnie. She loves her players. Good golly, she loves her players. It's really amazing how she invests so much time into them. And you just see that come back in spades to you when you know that your coaches have got your back and they want the best for you. So it's not always easy. You don't always see eye to eye as a coaching staff, but I think if you know at all times that what you're doing and what you're saying is for the best of the program at all times, then it's so much easier to bounce back from some tough times.
You mentioned getting better and learning yourself. Can you talk a little bit about how you do that? Do you attend clinics? Is it things online? What do you do as a coach to ensure that you're staying current and still progressing as a coach?
Yeah, I know that we've been stuck at home for a while now, and we sort of looked at each other as a staff and said, all right, we can't get out. How do we get better right now? And we've reached out on platforms sort of like this, and obviously Zoom's been big, and We've reached out to major league hitting coaches, major league managers, former players. We've had meetings with a lot of people, and just picking their brain on how they deal with certain situations, how they manage games, how they deal with technology in our game right now. I've been on a couple of calls with hitting coaches at the collegiate level all across the country, and just sat back in the corner and let them all talk and take some notes and see that, there's a lot of people, a lot of really good hitting coaches in our game that are willing to share and, just take some notes and try and pick away one or two things that we might be able to implement into our program or into my style of coaching. It'd be so easy to sit back and go, oh, yeah, we've won a national championship. We know what we're doing. But every other program's getting better as well right now. So if you're not trying to strive and get a little bit better and a little bit better and find out a new way to do it, then the rest of the pack's going to catch up to you. So just trying to stay ahead of the game and know that you can learn something from so many different people out there. I know we had a fantastic call with Coach Hamilton, Florida State basketball coach. He got on there and he talked for 2 hours, and he talked culture, and he just talked everything that you see when you watch his team play. And then you watch him on the sideline and go, he is a living, breathing, whatever he is what he is, and he goes out and coaches that way. And he's a relationship guy as well, just like Lonnie is. There's just so many good people around you that if you just reach out and they want to talk, like Brian Snicker, the manager of the Atlanta Braves, he coached Troy, the other assistant, and I in the minor leagues. We reached out and chatted to him. Same way. You ask him one question, and 35 minutes later, he stops talking just because he has so much passion about coaching and teaching in the game, and people want to share that, and I think for, any young people out there or any young coaches, if you want to talk to someone or want to learn something, just reach out. I mean, people want to share what they know. They want the youth. They want young players to know what they do so they can, be better at the game and learn so much faster.
I agree. And I think a lot of people are too reticent or scared to kind of take that chance, that risk of maybe rejection, right?
Yeah.
They never called me back. They never responded to my email. And a few weeks ago, we had Coach Storms on, the strength and conditioning coach for FSU football. And he talked about having athletes call him, or strength and conditioning, wannabe call him, and he picks up the phone and they don't know what to say because they never expected that he would answer. And so it's not only reaching out, but being prepared once you do reach out to have those questions or get that information. I've got one more question for you from Steven. We were talking about bringing in recruits early, or maybe they're not prepared. It says, when a recruit comes in out of shape and or maybe not who or what the staff expected, what do you do about that as a coaching staff to rectify the situation?
Yeah. Communication's huge, right? So we get to follow them a little bit through the recruiting process. We go out and watch them play. If we see they're out of shape, that we like to think that they'd be addressed long before they get to campus. I think that's where the relationship side comes in, keeping up with them and we can talk to them, keeping up with their coaches, keep a dialogue there. So if there's any issues that the player's having with that type of thing, that it gets addressed beforehand. If not, if they get on campus and maybe there's some improvements that we can make, we know we've got time. We know that we're not like, we're a spring sport. So when they come in the fall, we've got a good couple of months to work with them and get them in the best shape we can, teach them a lot. I know strength and conditioning, like you said with Coach Storms, right? That's such a huge part of your program. You're not even close to really being developed when you're coming in 17 and 18 physically, mentally, or any part really. So you got to know that when these young ladies come in or these athletes come in, part of your job is to develop them in that regard. So you're not giving up on them just because they're out of shape. You just know that, okay, here's a chance for us to develop this young lady and show them that we want them to be the best they can in all areas of the game. So, we don't give up on them. A lot of times it's just a little sit down, a little reminder that this is Division I softball. We're a top 10 program. We need you in the best shape you possibly can, because when the spring rolls around, we're trying to play 56 games and then play a 15-game postseason. So strength and conditioning and all of that is such a huge part.
Yeah. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. And so I have just one more question for you, which is, looking over your career, both as an athlete and as a coach, What advice do you have for those who may be wanting to get into coaching or advancing coaching from what you've learned along the way?
Make sure it's your passion, because it'll eat you up. Like we've talked about a little bit earlier, right? You can get worn down if you're just doing it for the paycheck, or you're doing it for any other reason than for the love of the game and the development of your players. That's the key. That's what gets you out of bed in the morning, and that's what makes, for me, feel like I don't really work. It's not work. I get to do what I love to do every single day. So I know the sporting field right now, and the sport management and the coaching side of it, there's so many opportunities out there in different avenues and in different sports and in different parts of the world, that if you have a passion for something and you're willing to work at it, pick up that phone, make some phone calls, go do some camps for free, go intern in certain places and let some people know that here's my work ethic. I don't want any money for it right now. I know if I get after it right now, I'll be able to figure it out later on. So it's like anything, you got to be aggressive. If you want something bad enough, you want to go to a school bad enough, you want to coach somewhere bad enough, you've got to go out of your way and do everything you possibly can to make that possible.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time. If somebody wants to follow up with you with a question, what's the best way for them to do that?
My email, for sure, TD Wilson. There it is right there, tdwilson@admin.fsu.edu. I'm on Twitter. Twitter's probably the best one for me through the coaching. I sort of keep the Facebook and the Instagram for the family stuff, but Twitter for sure on the coaching side of things. Reach out. I know for us, we go to conventions a lot, and you get to see some young coaches and all that. I really enjoy talking the game to young coaches, and I enjoy talking to young, the youth of today can teach us just as much as we can teach them. So keep learning, keep getting after it, and really appreciate your time today, Tim.
Well, thanks again, Travis. And of course, thank you all for watching. Just a reminder, we start again next week on Tuesday. We're going to have a few days break, and we'll be back in the action as we interview more coaches. But on behalf of myself, Travis Wilson, on behalf of myself, Tim Backers, and Travis Wilson, thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.